meeting to order and the date and stuff. Do you need that for the record? Heidi? Okay. Everybody ready? Well, we'll call this meeting to order for the Planning and Zoning Commission for May 23rd, 2023. Rodney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission. Several items I need to report back on for council actions at the 5:15 City Council meeting. The first one was the request for reconsideration of the zoning map amendment from BN to BC zoning district at the Greenhurst Square. That was the one right off of 12th and Greenhurst in the Albertsons parking lot down there for a vape shop. The city council had denied it, and they requested reconsideration. The person who was supposed to be there at the meeting had not shown up. They'd forgotten or something had come up, and so they requested a reconsideration. City council denied that reconsideration request, and so that can't come back to them again. The second one was annexation and zoning to RS22 for sewer and water services at 1724 Southside Boulevard. That one was approved for Salvador Rodriguez. Next one was an appeal of your decision to approve the conditional use permit for multifamily development in the BC zone for the Karcher Ranch Estates, or Karcher Ranch Apartments, for Kelly Kitchens. And that one was appealed. You had approved it, and it was appealed, and it was, the CUP was overturned. So they denied the CUP and approved the appeal. Their reasoning was that there wasn't the same demand in the market right now, that they're seeing a change in demand for apartments, and that this wasn't the right timing and location. They talked about it being just barely beyond the connection to I-84 that they would like to see. If you remember, the one down the road, just a short distance, was approved by the city council, and they felt like that one was the right location, and it had more accesses than this one did. So those were some of the reasons that they gave for denial there. The next one.
When that happens, can there be an appeal to the appeal, or is that the end of the road?
That's the end. Actually, if they reconsidered it, they could reconsider that appeal, but then that would be the end. So yeah, I guess there is that chance.
They could apply for a reconsideration.
They could,
Oh.
yeah, they could request a reconsideration. Okay, so the next one was a Brookhaven subdivision. This is off of Alma Lane down south. They denied it because essentially they didn't they felt like the developer didn't put enough effort into creating diversity in housing types and sizes of lots, and they didn't put enough thought into amenities and open space. There was open space, but they just felt like it wasn't enough. And so they denied that one. We're still working on the formal findings for that one that have to go back to them for their approval.
So Rodney, question,
Yeah.
I guess, on that Brookhaven off of Alma, it seems like we've had this conversation a bit recently where there've been multiple types and sizes of lots and housing types in these developments. Is that like a direction of the city council? That's where they're headed? That's what they want to see? Because we've had a lot of pushback on that.
We have. frankly, I can't speak to that. I'm struggling with that a little bit, because that was certainly the direction that they gave this developer. They said, oh, this is a great project, except that you need to have some diversity and in housing sizes and lot sizes. They wanted to create a buffer from existing county subdivision or county lots that were larger lots. So they wanted these larger lot sizes abutting them, but then smaller lot sizes in other locations. So that's the direction that they gave. But frankly, I've seen other direction from council about that same topic, and so I'm struggling a little bit with that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one is annexation and zoning to the University zoning district and a rezone to the U district for College of Western Idaho. You saw that one, the expansion of ag services there, and that one was approved. The next one, the last one was a rezone from BC to RS 8.5 on Southside Boulevard to create 2 residential lots from 1 existing lot, and that one was approved. And that is all I have for council report. Yes? Yeah, we've already had the school district start revising their letters that they had already sent us. So they are updating those letters and saying, hey, we've got approval for this bond.
Yeah, they did, they did.
So they are basically back into supporting development because they've got the funds to support it. And I just a personal note, I think we need to consider, I would encourage us to remember that development takes time. So by the time that school district comes and develops schools out, you would hope that that would be kind of coordinated. And so we'll see if that happens, but it does take time to develop all of these subdivisions and apartments. And so you would hope, again, that school district would move pretty quickly on those schools, but we'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we're going to take a roll call, please. Okay, Garner,
Here.
Miller is absent. Daffer.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Kehoe. Morgan.
Here.
Kirkman is absent. Selman. Here. Van Auker Jr. is absent. Thank you.
No other staff communication, Rodney? That was it? Okay. And we'd
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. Okay, so now we'll open it up for public hearing. And for those that haven't done this before, if you haven't signed up, you do need to sign up on the iPad that's in the back. So you can, if you want to speak. And then the way it works is the applicant will have 7 minutes to present their proposal. The staff will then report. We'll open it up for public comments. You'll have 3 minutes. There will be a timer. You'll have 3 minutes. Then the applicant will come back up and answer any questions and rebuttal for 5 minutes. And then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll discuss it and vote on it, and it'll go from there. So, and when you do come up, make sure whether you're the applicant or you have or against the proposal that you give us your name and address when you come up to the mic. So, with that, we will start with action item number 1, short plat approval for Whiskey Creek subdivision. Is that you?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of Commission. Stephanie Hopkins with KM Engineering, 5725 North Discovery Way in Boise. Thrilled to be here with you this evening to talk about the Whiskey Creek subdivision. We're requesting a short plat to subdivide this property into 2 lots. So just to give you a little bit of background on the property, it was annexed and zoned a couple years ago to the Industrial District IL. surrounded by property that's also within that district. And then there are some residential districts to the west. There's a multifamily district as well as a business commercial district, or business community district. The property is about 5 acres. We're proposing to subdivide it in this configuration into 2 lots, approximately 2.8 acres and I think 2.2 acres. Both lots will take access off of Bourbon Lane, which is a private road on the south side. I can't remember if I can laser point or not, but it's on the south side. There's an easement indicated there. And then there's also another private lane on the east part of the property, Pickard Lane. Yep, thank you. I don't know what happened. Okay. So let's see. This is the plat that we submitted. For some reason, my screen keeps going out, but as long as you guys can see, okay. This is the plat that we submitted with the easements that we had proposed at the time. There is 23-foot easement on the south side, north of the Mason Creek facility, and that's part of the Mason Creek easement. And then a 20-foot along Cajun Lane, which is on our west boundary. Pickard Lane is a 50-foot easement that is proposed. And those are for future development of the roadways. We've been working with engineering, and they've conditioned us to, those will be constructed with future development, not with this project. So in general, we are in agreement. This is just a final plat to kind of show you generally what the configuration of the lots are and the easements. In general, we are in agreement with the staff report. There are a couple conditions that we would like to kind of talk through and maybe find a good compromise for something that'll work for our client and work for the city. So the first one we've actually worked with staff on, and that was the 10-foot wide pathway that will be required to be constructed upon future development of this property. So not with this project, but with a future project. And the next one that I'm going to talk about is one of the engineering comments that was associated with the final plat. So number 2 noted that they wanted us to add 10 feet to the existing 20-foot public utilities and ingress/egress easement at the west boundary to ensure sufficient future road section width and accessibility to the parcel to the north. So as I mentioned, we're currently, so that's the Cajun Lane roadway. We're currently showing 20 feet there, and engineering has asked for an additional 10 feet to make that 30 so that they can expand, so that roadway can be expanded in the future. We're requesting that that be required to be the 20-foot easement just because of the way that the property is currently developed. So as you can see in this aerial, there's a garage and shop that's located really close to where we have the easement now. So we kind of depicted, and I think that I have some images here. The purple shows where staff is recommending that easement come in. And so that's about 2 feet from where this aerial shows the building. There are actually stem walls that extend further into where that 2 feet would be. So it would be, that easement would essentially be at the edge of the stem walls and would be detrimental to this building. So we're requesting that we actually, as we originally proposed, provide a 20-foot easement for Cajun Lane here. Second modification we'd like to request is to item 2 within sheet 1. Which is add additional public utilities and ingress/egress easement to East Bourbon Lane along the Mason Creek to ensure sufficient space for access given Nampa Meridian Irrigation District is likely to limit improvements within their easement. We recommend a width of 50 feet beyond the Mason Creek easement to provide space for the required Mason Creek pathway. So we're amenable to including the pathway easement, which we think would work really well within Nampa Meridian's existing easement, the Mason Creek, for the Mason Creek pathway. We talked with staff about this, and they're recommending 50 feet. I think, we didn't come to a conclusion, obviously, when we spoke with staff, but our request tonight is to include that 20-foot pathway easement that's going to be required to be constructed with future development to be included within the existing Mason Creek easement. Of course, if Nampa Meridian Irrigation District agrees to that, and include 30 feet of the 50-foot easement that they are originally recommending. So it would be to modify that condition basically to require a 30-foot easement with the 20-foot pathway located within the existing Mason Creek easement upon Nampa Meridian Irrigation District approval. I think I have an image to show you. So this is an image showing you where the stem walls exist for the easement along Cajun Lane on our west boundary. And then on the south boundary, there are a couple of, the main entrance to the office is located on the south side. You can see on the right-hand side of the image. It's pretty close to where they have a bunch of things stored and some parking available for folks. And then there's a garage door that it leads into the shop on the south side of the building as well. So this is the easement that is being proposed by staff, including the one along Cajun Lane. So the Bourbon Lane easement, and this is a little convoluted, so I'm happy to try to talk through it a little bit too. But so we show the Mason Creek easement is on the south side of the image, and the proposed 50-foot easement on top of that Mason Creek easement would encroach into where we currently have storage. It would be about 10 feet from the edge of the western part of the building. It'd be about 17 feet from, more like 15 feet probably from the front entrance of the building. So that would be potentially, I think the intention for this easement is for a roadway to Bourbon Lane to eventually be constructed within that easement north of the Mason Creek easement. And so that would mean that a road would essentially be right next to this building on both Bourbon Lane and Cajun Lane, which would be detrimental to the existing use and proposed use of the property. So this is what we're proposing instead, and that's to include the 20-foot pathway within the Mason Creek easement that exists and have enough easement for the roadway just south of where was proposed by staff, the 30-foot. So I know I'm ticking on time. This is just an image to show you kind of there's existing power poles. This is some of the storage, and this is actually the existing Cajun Lane roadway. So that additional 30 feet would get really close to that building, as you can see. And thank you for your time this evening. I know we do have a couple of requests, and they're a little bit confusing, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have. Our client and the property owner are here tonight, too, so they'd be happy to come up and kind of explain the situation and maybe the operation of the property, too.
Anybody have any questions? No. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll hear
Thank
from
you.
staff.
Mr. Chair, we don't have anyone else signed up other than the applicants, the Heaths, who would like to speak. Oh,
We gotta let Rodney go first.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. I have addressed one of the topics that Stephanie brought up in my slide presentation, but some of the other ones I'd like to have Daniel speak to in a minute here after I introduce this project. And it's pretty simple. You can see the land use on the, oh, that is
What is that?
wrong.
That's not right.
I'm sorry. There we go. I don't know why that was on that first slide. Sorry. There we go.
You moved all the way across town.
And
Rodney,
for some
quick
reason-
question.
Yes.
Not too long ago, we heard a concrete company, it seems like it was, is it just north of this? At the end of the lane? Okay.
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay, just wanted to be sure I'm remembering right. Thank you.
Yeah, so comprehensive plan, future land use map shows this as industrial, and it shows it within the airport overlay district, which has specific requirements for height and whenever, there's some complex math that I'm not going to do, and it's a good thing. But they would have to figure out whether that falls within that boundary and meet those conditions when they develop it. But I just wanted to point that out for your for background information. And then it's zoned IL. You mentioned the concrete batch plant. City Council approved annexation 165-2020 in April of 2020 for the subject property and the property directly to the south, created after a lot split at annexation. And then in February 2023, the Nampa Planning and Zoning Commission approved the Sunrock Concrete Batch Plant for parcel to the north. So there's an aerial view of the property. There's the preliminary plat and the final plat. And then I'm going to turn the time over to Daniel to help with this questions about transportation.
So the, we would be amenable to the including the Nampa Meridian irrigation easement in that distance, with the condition that if Nampa Meridian is not willing to allow that we revert back to the original recommendation. Looking at the recommendation from on the west side of the property for the request for the additional 10 feet, I think what Caleb was likely thinking as we look at the properties all around there, there's the large property to the west, and there's also the properties to the north. I can envision at some point in the future a more public road potentially coming up there and serving both the west of this property line as well as those properties. And that's likely what stems the request for the additional right-of-way to make sure we can preserve that to do that. I think I would likely be amenable to potentially a 25-foot rather than the full 30, so that it puts it farther away from the building there. If that's amenable to the applicant, I think we could live with that.
I had a question for you. What if we had a stipulation that there could be nothing new constructed in that extra 10 feet, and if anything, and they couldn't do anything with that current building, but if it came down, then they would have to give that full 10 feet. That way could you do something like that where they couldn't build anything that 10 feet on either side of that shop, and then if that shop ever comes out?
I would say we would likely need a development agreement to do something of that nature. I don't know that that's going to work very well as a condition of approval, just because there wouldn't necessarily be a recorded document associated with that. If this were something where they were willing to enter into a development agreement to stipulate that type of stuff, I certainly think
Yeah,
that's
something like that
that's
might work.
doable.
Just an idea. I just thought of.
Daniel, if we did do the full 30 feet, would that building be encroaching on any setbacks, or is that setback from the property line?
So in an IL zone, your property line setback would be 0. Am I correct, Rodney? Rodney's nodding correctly, or nodding that I am correct. So assuming we are not, and that's where if they have stem walls and stuff that extend beyond that and their footings, then that could be an issue. That's why I think dropping back to the 25 could address that and not have that issue in play.
I had another concern with this. With the concrete plant going to go back behind this property, you're going to have a lot of concrete trucks, mixers, cement trucks going in and out, gravel trucks. Has anybody thought about, instead of jogging that pathway along the creek that goes diagonal across there, continuing it right down Victory to the Cajun Lane and then go up, so that you don't have that right through the middle of those roads where you're going to have truck traffic all day long?
That is certainly a possibility. I think as we go to actually construct and that, currently the Mason Creek does not have any pathway around there. So that's certainly something as we get a larger project to look at that is one possibility. And if we went with that in the future, we could potentially relinquish the easement we receive here, but not knowing exactly how that would go, that's why we would recommend.
Yeah, because right now it runs along Victory there for a little ways and then cuts off. And I was just thinking it would be a whole lot easier to continue right down Victory and then up the other side, or one side of the other, Cajun Lane, not only for safety purposes, for people walking if that concrete plant's in there, but also for security purposes. At night, they'd only have a couple of gates to lock up, and you wouldn't have a pathway going through there.
Yep, understandable. That's certainly one option that it wouldn't be the first time we meandered a path off of the actual waterway for a portion. If you think the Wilson Drain over by Albertsons, we come and follow 12th Avenue there and stuff.
Yeah,
At
it was
various
just thought,
locations.
I just don't want pedestrians and bicyclists getting tangled up with concrete trucks. It just doesn't end well, so.
Daniel, when the applicant asked for the adjustment to the street from the 10 to 0 extra, my first compromise thought was to make it 5 foot instead of 10 foot, and you agree with that. My other question, or thought was, the property that's to the west of that, if that gets developed, would that extra 5 feet be beneficial, or could they still live without that extra 5 feet?
Yeah, we can do a public road in a 50-foot total right-of-way. We have a road section that would fit with. So a 25 would be something that would be doable there.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Daniel?
Okay, so I'll continue on mine. We've already started to talk about some of these. So front yard setbacks, 10 foot. When it develops, it would be 10 foot in the front, but no side or rear property setbacks are required in the IL zone unless they're abutting residential, which this one isn't. Street frontage, none is required. Access, they have to provide access to each lot. You've got a lot of this, I mean, you got all of this in your packet. I don't necessarily need to go through all of it, but I'm happy to cover anything if you have questions about it. Here are the number of parking spaces. We don't know the use, so this is just for your information when it comes in. There's the process for short plats, the landscaping requirements. And then here's the correspondence. Engineering has touched on a lot of this already, but number 5, I just wanted to point out things that are maybe a little unique to this one rather than to any subdivision. The 10-foot wide pathway shall be constructed along the north side of Mason Creek. The applicant has requested that that be changed to at time of development. I put that in one of my slides a little later on as a recommendation. I think that makes sense. Number 6, each parcel shall have access rights. Number 7, those roadways shall be improved at time of development. And number 8, that there was a culvert over the Mason Creek that was unauthorized and constructed without the approval of the city or Nampa and Meridian Irrigation District. So A, B, and C are the requirements that we would see as part of this development. They would need to comply with each of those 3 things. And number 9, a floodplain development permit application needs to be submitted because Mason Creek has a floodplain. Number 10, needs to comply with the conditions and requirements defined in the existing avigation easement. I thought it was aviation, but I looked it up and it's actually avigation. So. And then pretty typical standard comments from building and Nampa Meridian Irrigation District. Here's the analysis of the plat. As long as the conditions that we've talked about are complied with, it seems to meet those conditions. So here are the recommended conditions, 1 through 17, and I've highlighted that section on number 9 at time of development. And then it sounds to me like I just jotted down some notes that you may consider. A 25-foot instead of the full 30-foot on the west side. Is that correct? Maybe a condition that you could add. And then the 50-foot easement for Mason Creek on the south side, right? On the south side, you could use 20 feet of the pathway easement to be included into that 50-foot easement, if the Nampa and Meridian Irrigation approves that. If not, it would go back to the recommendations that were in the packet. And then the pathway at time of development. And then I just jotted this note, just that you had talked about maybe meandering that path away from the Mason Creek for portions to create safety. So you'll need to specify that if that's the motion you want to take. And that is all I have for you, unless you have any other questions for me.
Nothing from Daniel?
Randy, Rodney, sorry. Sorry, I read really slow. Can you go back to those conditions? I just didn't see
You bet.
the 30-foot and the 20, or and the
So-
50-foot in here. So help
It's-
me,
It's a requirement of the final plat comments, so that's number 5. Applicant shall address all final plat comments prior
Okay.
to city engineer's signature of the plat.
so it's all rolled up into that?
It's all rolled up into that.
Accepting what we discussed tonight,
Yep.
Yeah, if we
if we want to change.
make specifics, that's the condition that we need to alter. Okay.
Exactly.
Anything else for Rodney or Daniel? Okay, and we'll open it up to public hearing, and we don't have anybody signed up, Karen? Yeah, you have to sign up, though, on the iPad. Oh, they did? Oh. Karen?
Good evening. Hello, my name is Cheryl Heath. My address is 22996 Blessinger Road, Star, Idaho. I am the property owner of 3906 East Bourbon Lane that we're talking about. I'd like to start by saying thank you for your time this evening and listening to what I have to say and for this consideration on our project. My husband and I have been operating Heath Specialty Precast on this piece of property since the beginning of 2018. From a functionality standpoint, with the recommendations of these easements, the functionality of that building would be lost. It would be detrimental to the operation of that company. For one, like Stephanie had said, the front door is right there on that south side. That is also where one of the garage doors is for moving product in and out. Heath Specialty Precast is a concrete product manufacturing company. So it ties in really well with the new proposition up top to our north neighbors. Jason and I understand that there's a need for some of these improved easements. As you know, this property is brought up quite often, and we have been dealing with kind of what we've been handed, trying to put pieces together from the previous ownership. And so there are a lot of things that have happened on the property that we realize do need to be cleaned up, if you will. As far as the easement on the west side, currently, as you know, and I'm just going to say this just as a piece, but I do appreciate you considering bringing that back as to right now Cajun. I don't know if you have a picture. I should have brought the thing. Cajun Road goes up to Bourbon Lane, and that's where it dead ends and turns. So I understand you are looking at future development to be able to go up north. Right now, the only property up that is accessible to that is the neighbor to the north. When the roads were put in with the original owner, Cajun Lane, Bourbon Lane, and Pickard, those were all meant to be the roadways to all the parcels that are there. Again, I'm just making note that we would definitely appreciate not going all the way to the building with that easement. Let's see. As far as what Mr. Turner had said about safety and that pathway, I couldn't agree more. Currently, right now, those are gated high industrial traffic. Not only will Sunrock be adding a huge amount of large equipment coming in and out, the property to the northeast is a recycling center, and they have vehicles all day long, just a steady flow of traffic. So I would definitely agree with safety in that, and that would just be my input there. Again, I appreciate your time tonight, and I know, it's flashing. But anyway, I do appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else, Karen? Stephanie, you come back up and.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Commission. Appreciate engineering's suggestions on the 25-foot on the west side. I think our client's amenable to that. And then, yeah, if we could include the 20-foot pathway easement within the Mason Creek easement upon Nampa Meridian Irrigation District's approval, we'd be happy with that as well. So I'll stand for any other questions if you have them.
I have a question. I'm confused. I thought you were saying that with the 25-foot easement, the door would not be accessible?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Kehoe, I think, so originally we'd proposed 20 feet, and then at 30 feet, it would have been about 2 feet from the door, according to the aerial, but would be hitting the stem wall. With 25 feet, I think that we have enough space that it wouldn't
Okay.
be detrimental.
Misunderstood then. I thought you were saying it wasn't enough still.
If we wanted to decrease it, I'm sure that would be preferred,
Yeah,
but
we got to think about the future also. I mean, you guys are caught between a rock and a hard place. You didn't make all these boundaries, I realize that, but we have other people that are going to come along down the road with that property, and they're going to say, well, what about us?
sure.
You know, so we need to fix what we can now by making that, I think, the 25-foot instead of the 30-foot or the 20-foot.
Well, and I guess while we're talking about it, I don't know if engineering wants to maybe have their input, but would it be an option to put all of the right-of-way improvements that would be required to the west where those properties are undeveloped and potentially straighten that road out to be kind of to go from, I know that that's not typically how it's done, but because there are some properties that have been developed on this block of things, it might be a cleaner slate.
It would be possible. It's typically not how we do that, but it would be possible. There is that stub drain coming north of Mason Creek there that would have to be dealt with. But to do anything there, they're going to have to deal with that anyway. So that is a possibility if the commission, is more amenable to leaving it at the 20 feet. When that other property develops, they would have to deal with it at that point.
Yeah, if you
Yes.
had a clean slate and you knew you were doing heavy truck traffic, what would be your preferred road section, road width?
The road width?
Yeah.
So depending on the use, we have for an industrial roadway, our standard width is a 70-foot right-of-way width. That being said, with the amount of area that's up here and the type of trucks, I don't think we see a lot of, doubles and triples going in out of here. So a more normal 56 to 60-foot width is probably okay. In those areas where we see the doubles and triples a lot, that's where we would like the wider roadways so that they can make their turns and not conflict with other, traffic heading the opposite direction.
And Sunrock's plan is, their in and out is going to be pickered, right?
Yes, that is part of their stuff. They are having to do analysis on the culverts and everything to make sure that they can handle the loads that they are putting on it.
So 50 is a bare minimum. 50-foot width is a bare minimum for this type of traffic, it sounds like, or even below.
So if you're doing just straight shots, so coming north-south, a 50-foot is going to be fine. It's where those trucks have to start making those turning movements, where they have to swing out wider and that we would run into the issue.
I guess, is there any problem with saying 25 on this and 35 on the other?
I would certainly say that's reasonable.
I have a degree in civil engineering, if you can't tell. Or how much I know about this stuff.
While we're talking numbers, would it be 20 foot on ours and 40 on the other?
That's 60, we're only looking for 50.
Well, he was thinking 60 might be a
We could
better
get
section.
60, yeah, 60 would be better, but that's why I was thinking 25 and 35, but now we're going, is the other property owner gonna be upset when hey, why do we have to do a 40-foot easement when they only had to do 20, and do we just say tough luck, or?
I would say with the amount of property that the property to the west has, That amount of difference is likely not going to be significant for a property of that size. The only other concern would be is a 20-foot width there. If it is, if Sunrock is going to utilize that, 20-foot is, a bit, could be problematic for Sunrock, but I believe their intent is to try to utilize the drive to the east side of the property, and that's where they're looking at their improvements. That's the approach and culvert that was put in without permission while it was in the county. And so we're working on those remedies, and those are some of the conditions that have been placed by Cajun.
Almost, if you look at the aerial, Cajun is almost in line with the east side of Gray's Lane anyway, so it
Yeah.
should go
Right.
more to the west.
It wants to
line that
push
whole
the
thing
west,
up.
you're right. Stephanie, do they need to access that building from the roadway on the on the west side of that building?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Morgan, I'm not actually sure if you guys access the building from the west side.
Like, so you're not trying to pull trucks or anything right into the, you would access that building from the east side?
We need them on the record,
Sorry.
Mike.
You want to come on up and just say your name?
Cheryl Heath, do you need my address?
You got it already, I think.
Okay, perfect. So for that building, access for operation is through the north and south side, heavily on the south side, which is why that other easement is actually more cumbersome than the one on the west. But Sunrock, their trucks do go up and down that 20-foot road because they deliver product to that property. So, and they have no problem navigating the 20-foot, so.
Mr. Chair, I thought I'd just put my 2 cents in here real quick on the adjustment of a road. We actually do that quite a bit when we do intersections. Sometimes we'll veer the intersection off to one side versus another because of development that's already occurred on those properties. And so if there's justification for moving a roadway, I would just say that that's pretty common practice because of the built environment.
Any other questions for Stephanie? Thank you.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I'd be okay with going down to 20 feet, personally, I don't know. Daniel, would you be mad at us if we did that?
Would you put us in your will if we gave 25 feet?
I think that for me personally, I would probably go with the 25, just because of the fact that we don't know when that next door property is going to develop.
I feel more
And that would
comfortable with
give us-
25 as well.
The 25 feet now, as opposed to just saying, hey, sometime that'll happen, and then the road will be comfortable for big trucks. So I think a compromise would be 25 feet for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we're not gonna build it until we have the full right-of-way, are we? What do you, maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying that road will be in use, right? Before
Just
that
20
ever
foot
happens.
wide
Yeah,
or 25 foot?
25.
I think that the applicant is really more concerned about
Southern end.
yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of out of our control, it sounds like. Like, we could recommend that they make it less, but
And we work very well with them in the past. I think they probably would go with that, wouldn't they, Rodney?
I would anticipate that we'll be able to work something out with Nampa Meridian there, yes.
I mean, they've been around a long time, we've been around a long time, we've worked together a lot of projects, so I really can't see them saying no. But they could, but I can't see them doing that. Seeds on the tip of your tongue.
Me, yeah. I guess we'll just have to work through making sure we get it all worded right, but, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we move to recommend approval of the subdivision short plat for Whiskey Creek subdivision in an IL zoning district at 3906 East Bourbon Lane for Heath Property Company with recommended conditions, with the exception that the pathway along Mason Creek be constructed. That's not it, no, we're not doing that. And adopt the proposed findings in the staff report, and also that we.
Why are we not doing that
Yeah,
one?
the pathway would be
The time of the
constructed.
development, okay? Yeah, so at the time of, constructed at the time of development, but also with the modification that instead of the recommended 30-foot easement on the west boundary, that it be reduced to 25-foot easement, and that is it the,
Southern one,
that
if approved, if
that-
it's approved by Napa Meridian Irrigation District.
that the portion of the 50-foot, how is it the 20-foot pathway easement be included in that 50-foot recommended easement by engineering upon approval of Nampa Meridian Irrigation District.
And do you want?
We get it?
And do you want to include the pathway, the Mason Creek pathway continue down Victory to Cajun Lane and then go north so it doesn't cut?
I think, yeah, we can, and recommend that the 10-foot side path be, how do you want to say?
Mason Creek pathway be
Continued down Victory past,
to Cajun Lane,
to what?
Cajun Lane.
Cajun Lane,
and north.
and then north along the north boundary west of this short plat.
I think I'll second that, but I'm,
That was pretty choppy, pretty choppy.
Did you get all that, Karen, do you think?
And adopt the findings?
Huh?
And adopt the findings?
Yes, and adopt the findings in the staff report.
Second.
I already did.
You said you didn't want to. You
No, I
were
said-
scared.
Well, I'm afraid how it's going to
Are you
turn
okay
out.
with it, Rodney? Is there anything that's not clear?
And I think I can work with Daniel on the exact location of that Mason Creek pathway.
Where is, I'm assuming it's currently coming down Victory,
Probably coming on the,
or is it coming down Mason Creek?
Portions that are currently constructed. There's
I would,
Right.
no
Okay.
existing pieces, so we can,
I would
I
assume. that-
understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
run
would
it
assume
down.
it would be coming down, if they went along Mason Creek right there on Victory, it'd be right on the north side of the creek. And so then you would just have to come across where the culvert is and continue it right down Victory and then jog up and then come back. I just think that'd be a whole lot safer. Yeah, it could be years before that pathway gets built, but. You got it all, Rodney and Karen?
I think so. So the pathway would follow the Mason Creek on the north side here.
No.
Okay.
So Rodney, it would likely come on the south side of Mason Creek adjacent to Victory, and we will continue it on Victory to Cajun, and then north and rejoin
Right.
the Mason Creek there,
north
on the north or south side, whichever one we end up doing.
Yeah, okay, got it.
And we had a second.
Yeah, I'm still good with the second.
Okay. Steve's got a second. Any further discussion?
Hopefully not.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I thought that was going to last us about 10 minutes to do that one.
Thank you. Sorry, it's my first time running a meeting. I'm still working through this.
You'd think it was my first time making a motion, too.
That's why I was a little iffy.
Who's actually on the top of your tongue?
Okay. So, action item number 2, we need to open the public hearing and continue it to June 13th, correct? So, we'll open the public hearing. Somebody want to make that motion to continue to June 13th?
I'll make a motion that we continue action item number 2 to June 13, 2023.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Move that one to June 13th. Okay, moving right along. Action item number 3, conditional use permit for a multi-family residential in a BC zoning district. The housing company.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Catherine Almberg, 565 West Myrtle Street in Boise, and I am representing the housing company for the Core Apartments conditional use permit. The housing company is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are an affordable housing developer. We've done lots of projects around the state of Idaho. Our mission, we're a mission-driven company. Our mission is to provide safe, affordable, sustainable housing for Idahoans. We have a couple of projects in Nampa. We just completed the Canyon Terrace Apartments right in front of St. Alphonsus Hospital by the Wendy's there, and that was a partnership with St. Alphonsus and Trinity Health to do that one, and we're looking to do something similar here. I was before the commission last July 26 with this same CUP, and it was passed. We had some delays in getting our funding packages together because some of the financing that we apply for are HUD funds, and then we applied for the $50 million that the governor set aside for workforce housing this last year, and that took a little bit of time for the underwriters to do their thing, and so our CUP expired in like a month or two ago before we could submit our building permits to the city. And so this is exactly the same project that you approved last year, the same site plan that you approved last year. We are just asking for basically a renewal of it. We are on track right now. We've got all of our financing together. Our construction drawings will be done the end of June and ready to submit to the city, and we hope to break ground in September. You'll remember the project is for 60% and less of area median income. It's 74 units right at 12th and Florida. We purchased the property from D.L. Evans Bank, 3.189 acres, and it's right behind, in an infill site, right behind D.L. Evans and Carl's Jr. there that's on the corner of Florida. We have 34% open space. Again, it's a project that you've seen before. Our market study shows that there's over 5,000 income qualified households that will potentially live in this property. Again, anyone makes up to about $50,500. Our rents right now, according to HUD standards right now, will range between $415 for a one-bedroom to $1,224 for a three-bedroom. That's well below what market rates are right now in Nampa. I think the last market study is they can go up around $2,000 for some of the newer units in the city of Nampa. So that's all I had. I hope that you will all approve this project for the renewal, or I guess a new CUP on it, so that we have the time that we can get submitted to the city, hopefully in the next 45 days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Parker?
Thank you. The requested action is approval or denial of conditional use permit. Again, this came before you last year. The history, this was rezoned from RP to RML BC in '98. The comp plan was changed in 2009, included the NNU district. July, this body approved the CUP. Same concept was what is being proposed now. And then in February, the CUP expired. This is 2 miles from Fire Station 1, 6-minute response time. The conclusions of law defined needs to be compatible with, not adversely affect the livability or appropriate development of abutting properties. Needs to provide a convenient, functional living, working, shopping, civic environment, enhance the successful operation of the surrounding area, as well as providing essential service. The correspondence, nothing out of the ordinary. The engineering comments are also provided for you. Traffic impact study is not required. No access is allowed on 12th Avenue. Frontage has already, right-of-way has already been dedicated. So the site plan, again, this is the same, exact same as was proposed last year. Elevations, this will have to go through design review. There's a variety of commercial uses, single-family and multifamily uses in the area. This is commercial in the comp plan. It's Nampa High School that is just down the street. South Middle School is about a half mile. Sherman Elementary is a mile and a half. They're required to provide 5% open space. Parking is calculated 1.5 for one bed and then 2 per dwelling unit for a 2-bed plus, and then a quarter space for guest parking for each unit. They're estimated to meet that requirement, but it will be fully reviewed at time of building permit, as well as the landscape plan. Not really anything else. The rezone in 98, that included a development agreement, had a list of conditionally and permitted uses, which are those in the RP and BC zones. There was no concept plan or specific uses within that document. So we're just leaving it as it is and operating under that. Compass reports that its proposal provides affordable housing near a bus route, as well as other essential services. And the conditions of approval are the same as last time. We did include findings this time, which are in the staff report. And a motion for you. I'll stand for any questions.
Parker, can you go back to the aerial view and enlarge that a little bit? Yeah, that. Can you enlarge that a little?
Let's see.
There you go. And now move it down. You had it right.
Mark's doing it for us. I think. Or was I doing it? Oh, I am doing it. Hang on. There.
And just move it down a little.
Oh,
That's when you lose it.
sorry.
Let's
This is a
go
little.
up closer to the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just pull up the GIS map.
Well, get back to it and just hold it there. Don't move it. So, no, not that one. I don't care about the cement plant. Never mind. Never mind.
Are you looking for something specific?
Well, I'm trying to figure out where the car wash is and the McDonald's and
Right
Oh, I
here.
should write down there.
that's the car wash. Okay, okay. Then I have a question for the applicant, if they could, when they come back up.
Okay, hang on to it.
No, not yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Parker.
Parker, does this have a commercial component required for it? Or is it far enough back from the roadway, or is this roadway not one that would trigger that?
This is far enough back that
it's
it's not
fine.
required, yeah.
And I'm looking at the site plan, and it looks like 74 units times 2.25 gives them right on the number with the parking. And on the site plan, am I seeing little rectangles that are partially, the canopies over the top of some of it?
Right,
Okay.
there are covered parking
So
spaces.
they have enough covered?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Any other questions for Parker? Okay, we'll open it up for public hearing. Do we have anybody signed up, Karen?
We have Lindsay Ward.
Sure to give you your name and address when you get to the mic, please.
My name's Lindsay Ward, and my address is 1219 Maple Street, so I'm right behind that lot. So our biggest concern, I guess, is that it's 10 foot off our fence line. It's 3 stories high, so it's looking directly into our backyard. I also, obviously it's gonna start in September. My husband and I actually had COVID last year when it happened, when we did the first public hearing, so we weren't able to come. So I guess we're just concerned about like the noise and how many people are gonna be there, and stuff like that, so. And then also, sorry, I get nervous talking in front of people. Our backyard's basically useless at this point, just because of, there's on the site plan, I think it showed like a balcony right where our backyard lines up to the building. So we have people that are gonna be, I don't think they intentionally will, but looking into our backyard, we have young children, stuff like that, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? That was it? Catherine, can we get back up here, please?
Catherine Almberg.
So that's 3 stories. There's probably not much you can do, is there?
No, we're within the 30-foot height. There's a 30-foot height restriction there, and we're within that.
And are you planning on putting a solid 6-foot fence?
Yes.
around it?
And there'll be landscape back there as well.
Between the building and the, any trees or anything like that going back there, you know?
Probably. I don't know. I haven't seen the landscape plan yet, but I would say we were finishing up Sunset Landing. It's a very similar situation to this in Caldwell off of Logan and Sunset Avenue. Right now, I was just out there yesterday, and there's very good-sized trees. It's the same situation as here. There's houses along the street that we have buildings going up right above them, and there's good-sized trees back there, but I can't swear to that because I haven't seen the landscape plan. But based on what the city's requirements are and what we typically do, I would say there's probably, but that would be something that the city would review.
Maybe, yeah, because there should be some requirements for trees, but maybe talk to the landscaper and see if they can't maybe strategically place a couple back there.
Absolutely.
To give her a little more privacy. if
Yeah,
it's
and
close.
we try to be good neighbors. We are always very conscientious of the neighbors. I do understand Lindsay's position because I would be concerned about the same thing if it was my backyard. I'm just being honest here, right? But, it's zoned for this type of a use. It's a 30-foot use. It could be an office building if it isn't apartments, so
Okay.
growing pains.
Any more questions for us? Oh, yeah, I figured that you probably forgot by now.
I know I'm old, but I'm not that old. When you have a project like this, and I'm definitely in favor of the project, so please don't misunderstand my questioning here, okay? Do you ask your tenants to be cognizant of the surrounding businesses and not to, like the car wash has free vacuums and stuff like that? Do you tell your tenants, hey, don't go over there and abuse the vacuum cleaners or the cleaning or the McDonald's? And
Yeah.
I just don't know the project, what you tell your people,
Yeah, well,
if anything.
yeah, so we have very strict house rules for ourselves about the behavior of the tenants, what they put on their balconies. You know, we don't allow them to have barbecues on their balconies if they're off the first floor because of fire. We have very strict behavioral rules. You know, they're not allowed to harass their neighbors or anything like that, like any apartment does, right? You have a lot of people living in a small space. We can't control what people do when they're not on our property. So as far as us being able to enforce rules for our tenants about what they would do at the car wash or the McDonald's, that's for city enforcement. I mean, we can't control that.
City can't either, so.
I mean, these are working people. It's not, I
But I'm
mean,
just saying, do you contact your people and say, you know, this is a project that a lot of people are opposed to, they don't like low-income housing or subsidized housing?
yeah.
But it's a necessary fact, we need to have it, and it's a good location for this project.
Right,
I just don't want to see it have a bad reputation because people don't take care of the place.
right.
And then the next one comes up, they say, no, remember the one over there driving, you know. so-
Right. I speak to a lot of groups, and one of the things I always tell people is affordable housing is more regulated than market rate housing, and so I find it's better looking because we get inspected every single year, and if we have even a bush touching the building, I mean, we get written up for that because that can attract pests, and so we have to have them cut back from the building. And we do credit and criminal background checks on all of our residents. If you have drug charges that are recent, we don't take sex offenders, you know, we do a very stringent review of everybody that moves in to our apartments. I would challenge anybody to say that our apartments are as good or better than most of the market rate, visually speaking, that I see around.
And that's what I was looking for. I mean, you put my mind at ease, and I appreciate that.
Does it have the on-site manager living there?
Yes, living on-site manager that'll be there.
Is it going to be income restricted forever, or is there a timeline on that?
40 years.
40 years?
But the housing company, we're a perpetual affordable housing owner, so as long as we own it, it won't be, we've had other properties come out of affordability, so to speak, where the income restriction goes away, and we've maintained them as income restricted properties, just because that's our goal. And
40 or 4?
40 years, yes, 40 years is the
We don't have to
initial,
worry about it.
Yeah.
yeah, the initial affordability period is 40. 40 years. You know, and again, I'm a College of Idaho alumni, and I've spoken to many people about, as an advocate for affordable housing. You know, affordable housing isn't what we used to think of, like the projects or people on welfare, that kind of thing. These are people that are making up to, you know, $15, $20 an hour, that single moms, you know, it's the person at the grocery store, it's your waitress at the restaurant, it's the person that works at maybe the concrete fabricating company that was just up here, the truck drivers for Sunrock, or, you know, whatever. It's working people. You have to pay rent here, unless, of course, you come with a housing choice voucher, but these people are paying rent. It's just lower rent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Entertain a motion to close public.
Moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Parker, I guess, I enthusiastically supported this project last year, and I still do. This is exactly what we need. I do feel for the privacy concerns, though. Parker, is there anything in code that deals with that, or is it just kind of tough luck and hope that they plant the trees in the right spot?
There isn't specifics on where they need to plant their trees. I feel like if you want them to be used for screening purposes along the east side, then you should probably specify that. The only thing that we have, I mean, we don't even require a fence necessarily, just a setback.
I don't know, what do you guys think? Is it
I think that it should be directed. I think that, you know, they can plant those trees strategically so that they are in line with, you know, windows or view corridors or stuff like that. And I think that it's reasonable to say that that should be advised, you know, when they're doing their plantings. I think
Yeah, I agree with that, too.
Recommendation.
Me too.
Matt, we agreed on two things tonight. We've agreed on two things tonight.
This motion is right on the tip of your tongue.
Go for it.
Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the conditional use permit for multifamily residential in a BC zoning district for the core at 012th Avenue and 203, 211 East Florida, and 1224 South Nectarine. Geez, where is this link? On East Hawaii for the housing company with the recommended conditions and approval and adopt the potential findings of approval as listed in the staff report.
And the,
You want to add anything about the trees?
Oh, yeah, and strategically place the, now, popular trees grow fast and they grow tall, but I don't know, is that a good species around here?
I don't think I would specify tree size, but I would say that placement of the trees should be such that it screens from views into backyards or view corridors. I don't know what you want to call it, but
I don't either. Are we gonna leave it up to staff? Can you guys handle that?
Well, so the tree type, we have a list of trees that they can choose from, so I wouldn't get too focused on that.
Well, and the reason I was asking is because, I mean, if they take a maple tree, they lose their leaves in the wintertime. Poplar trees tend to have foliage all year long. Or am I thinking of something, arborvitae, maybe I'm thinking of arborvitae.
evergreen trees.
Yeah.
Anything that's in the evergreen will
Yeah,
be green all year.
I don't think we should legislate the species of tree. I think
Right. stand corrected.
And then the placement of it, that, we would have just as hard of a time as you would to decide where to place those. I think you do your best and you just say strategically place them so that it
Or as many
Provides privacy
blocks
for
the
the
view.
neighbors.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Catherine's got that already. I think trying to work with the landscaper to do what they possibly can. Some of it's going to be the building, utilities, so they may not be able to put them right where they need to, but I think she's got the idea that
Okay.
what we're trying to get across, so.
work.
Second. Did we already have one?
No.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And with that, Catherine, I got to read you this, which I'm sure you've heard before. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on this CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay, for coming.
Action item number 4, conditional use permit for a duplex on 3rd Street. Must be you guys, you're the last ones here. Name and address, and then tell us what you want to do.
Okay. My name is Scott Macias, 811 3rd Street North. So pretty much build a duplex. I'm trying to house my mother and my sister. I want to do it the right way, the legal way. They currently I had a house in Fruitland, Idaho that they were living in. We just sold, so we're trying to use that money to fund this operation. So that's it.
And you're planning on living in one side of it?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, well, we'll hear from staff, and if we have any questions, we'll bring you back up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Parker?
The action requested, approval or denial of CP for a duplex. This is zoned RS6. To the north is the Phil's Canal, single-family residences to the south and west, and then there's a city park, Hunter Park, and the church to the east. This body, maybe not you specifically, but voted to approve a CP for a duplex back in 2014. And they approved an extension of 6 months Then city council approved a variance to allow a setback intrusion for that specific duplex, which subsequently expired in 2015 with the CUP. Those were different owners at that time. The CUP conclusions of law we've already covered tonight. Those are in the staff report. Parking, at least 2 paved off-street parking spaces are required, one of which would need to be covered, and that's per unit. The height requirements can't exceed 30 feet in height. This is a site plan rough sketch that was supplied. You can see carport, driveway, structure where the existing structure is. The engineering comments are provided for you. It's in a floodplain area. They would need to go through that process when they submit their building permit, and it will be reviewed accordingly. Frontage improvements would be required as well. The properties at the end of a dead-end street that ends at the Phyllis Canal. The Indian Creek is behind it, so kind of a corner area. There's a mix of residential uses here, duplexes, multi-unit buildings that are all within a quarter mile of this. The Hunter Park is across the street. There's a small parking lot available for that as well. The land use designation here is residential mixed use. Conditions of approval upon development, they'll just have to follow our city codes when they submit their building permit, and then submit a floodplain development permit application as well. Potential findings are in the staff report. A motion is provided for you, and I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Parker?
Yeah, one quick one. Parker, are they asking for any setback variances this time around?
No requests were made, no.
So that's not carrying over into the new?
No. Mm-mm.
Any other questions? We'll open it for public hearing. We have anybody, Karen, on the applicant?
Make a motion, we close public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, what do you want to do?
I think it's a great use of the property.
For sure. Fits in that neighborhood, that's for sure. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in there.
Unless anybody can stop me, I'll move that we approve the conditional use permit for a duplex in the RS6 zone at 811 3rd Street North for Scott Macias. Yeah, Macias, with the recommended conditions, and adopt the potential findings of approval as listed in the staff report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So, and this is, Scott, you just heard this, but I got to read it for you anyway. So, this CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on this CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. Check with them in 15 days. Okay? Thank you.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I could ask if anybody's opposed, but I'm.
We'll take care of that out back.
I made the most popular motion of the night, just so you know.